Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining the Nonprofit Learning Lab for today's workshop. If you have any questions along the way for our presenter, you can type them into the questions box in your GoTo control panel, likely on the right-hand side of your screen. If you have any tech questions, you can also type them there. If you are interested in receiving the recordings and materials from today's webinar, you can visit our free webinars page on the Nonprofit Learning Lab website, or you can email us at program@nonprofitlearninglab.org. And without further ado, I will now hand it over to you, Allecia.
Thank you so much, Monica. I appreciate it today, and I'm really excited to talk to all of you about annual reports. Is it a burden, or is it really a call to action for donors? I'm Allecia Harley, founder and CEO of Prevention Advisory Group, and we're going to dive right in today. So, you are in the right place. If you'd rather get a root canal than spend another minute working on a nonprofit annual report, we're going to talk about making it easier for you. If setting aside time to think and write an annual report, when is that supposed to happen with all of the responsibilities that you have, right? Putting one more thing on your plate, seriously, no one reads the annual report, so why waste the time? So we're going to dive into this a little bit today and talk about why you're not attracting more donors with your annual report. We'll go over the neuroscience of annual reports and how to make them more attractive, a love letter to your donors. We're going to talk about making an impact using our annual report during the prospecting process, making the ask, acknowledging the donor, and next steps. So if you're ready, we're going to get right to it. But our gift to you as a part of listening today for the Nonprofit Learning Lab is if you go to nonprofitbonus.org, not only will you get the ultimate guide to creating nonprofit annual reports, you'll also get the nonprofit annual report checklist, a tool that is very useful for you as you go along your annual report journey, and then a bonus training around getting those $500,000 donors. So we have a challenge that's starting in July. If you go to this website and put in your email address, you'll get those two documents as well as automatic registration into the 500K donor challenge. I look forward to seeing you there. So we've got two notes. As we're working through our annual report process, we're not going to copycat. We're not going to take somebody else's template. We're not going to be uncreative. We're going to have all of our creative juices flowing on this, and we're going to think not about small change, but about the big donors that are going to help you and your organization move forward and create your mission. But before I get too deep into it, I also want to tell you about an opportunity, a free opportunity for you to get some consulting advice if in fact you're ready for the challenge. So there is a Voices of Leadership conference coming up this fall. It's 3 days, virtual only, November 3rd through 5th. We're going to be talking about voices, value, outcomes, impact, communication, engagement, and strengths. Well, what's in it for you is as a nonprofit organization, if you have a governance or a leadership problem that you have been struggling to solve, if you grab your phone and take a picture of this QR code link, it's going to take you to an application. In that application, you can present the governance or leadership problem that you're solving. And then the consultants that are attending this conference, 4 groups of them will take the challenge from one lucky nonprofit and provide some solutions, free consulting advice for nonprofit organizations on a transformational problem in governance or leadership that you are facing. So you'll complete the application, it'll be reviewed after August 15th, which is the deadline. Selections will be made by August 31st, and then one lucky nonprofit organization will have 4 teams of consultants working on that problem, and they will present those 4 options for solutions to you, and you get the opportunity to choose based upon that free consulting advice that you'll receive. And then you come back next year and you tell us what the outcome was. All right, now for the meat. So many of us want to be many of us have struggled in the past. I was a donor downer, right? That meant my annual report was all about the accomplishments of my organization. Social media was a bragging platform. My website didn't have a volunteer or donate button, and donors didn't hear from us between the time of one fundraiser to the next. But we all want to be donor dynamos, right? Closer to 100. And that is when our annual report feels like a gift to our donors, that our social media draws them into the website and the annual report. The website is modern. It moves people to donate or to volunteer. And the nurture strategy keeps donors engaged and giving. So we want to move from the downer world into the donor dynamo world. And so I'll just tell you a little bit about my story because I failed at first. I shared a lot of pictures of my team and me engaged in activities. I shared a laundry list of our accomplishments and our fiscal prowess. I didn't share any stories about our clients or our donors. I shared a number of testimonials where people talked about how great we were and what we had done, but I completely missed the mark on motivating donors and recruiting volunteers. I refused to stay focused on identifying and nurturing those donors because I had squirrel syndrome, honestly. I mean, there's so much information out there about, oh, well, you got to do this, you've got to do that. And we all, sort of want to make sure that we're on the cutting edge and doing the right thing. And that allowed poor responses to become an excuse for getting discouraged, walking away, or giving up. And as a result, I left big dollar donations on the table. And the young people that I served, they didn't get all the support that they needed and that they deserved. So there are 6 places where people get stuck. People get stuck because they don't know where to begin, they need more prospects to talk to, or they need more follow-up meetings. They got plenty of prospects, they know exactly where to begin, but people aren't returning their calls. They're not getting that follow-up that they need. Or the ask isn't specific enough, and so people aren't responding. There are all these options for people to donate. And so when the ask is made, there's more confusion and very little action. Or people are really good at getting the small change donors, but they want to get the big donors and understand how to nurture those relationships. And or they may need to update, thank, or recognize those donors. So knowing that these are the 6 strategic places that people get stuck, the question becomes, why are we stuck? Well, it's easy. It's easy to get lost in all of the information that is out there. People will tell you, you've got to use Twitter. It's all about events. If you don't have, high-end events, it's not going to happen. Or what? You mean you're not buying lists? What do you mean you're not buying lists? If you don't buy lists, you're not in the game. Oh, I know what the answer is. It has to be relationship mapping. You have to map all the relationships among your staff, among your board, among your volunteers, and recruit those people. Or it's all about the research. Everybody will tell you it is all about the research. And research is important, but we don't want to go too far down that hole so that we are not having the conversation. Or people will say, you know what, it's your website. Your website is the problem. It's not attractive. People don't want to donate on that website. These are all very good reasons that people get lost or stuck and unable to get the donations that they need. But what I want to share with you is the neuroscience of donating. I want to give you strategy and a practical tool that you can use in your conversations with donors and in your annual reports to make it more effective, because we all know that we are social animals. And as a part of that, even the most introverted of us enjoy spending time with close family and friends. And what happens when we're around people, when we're having a good time, when we're laughing, when we're smiling, it triggers oxytocin, which also triggers serotonin and dopamine, which becomes the happiness trifecta. When we help others, when we spend time with others, when we smile, when we see others smile, when we volunteer, and definitely when we donate, it triggers oxytocin within us, which ultimately will raise our serotonin levels and our dopamine levels. And so when you are asking people to donate, if you think in your own mind that I am helping this individual to trigger the happiness trifecta, they're going to be happy as a result of donating and making a difference and making an impact. And so you have the opportunity to use that tool to help you in your conversations with people so that you're making the right ask and you're making the right kind of a difference in their lives. So I want to show you this picture and get some of your feedback because When you look at this, I want you to tell me, where do your eyes go? What is memorable about this particular photo? If you want to, you can put it in the chat for me. I'd love to hear your thoughts about what is it that is key for you in this particular photo. Anyone, any comments? His smile, yes. Yes, Pamela, thank you. Yes, his smile. Most of us go straight to his eyes and his smile. The words that are on the page don't really make a difference. You don't really care so much about the logo. Now, the word impact is large. Yes, Pamela, it is. And so some of you will see that. Some of you will focus in on what's that conversation that's going on among the graduates in the backgrounds, right? But from a neuroscience perspective, the majority of us are attracted to a smiling face. And so we want to make sure that when we do our annual report, that there are lots of pictures of smiling faces, people engaged in conversation, things that are going to draw others in. And so don't discount the value of a picture in creating that trifecta. So even though we're only seeing an image of someone smiling, it's very similar to seeing someone smile in person. It is very hard not to smile in return. So why annual reports? Why do we care about annual reports in this process? It's because it helps donors visualize their impact, how they can or did help others. You know, one of the things that I say very frequently, and those of you that follow me on social media will see that I frequently talk about the fact that no one wakes up in the morning excited to donate. But a lot of people wake up in the morning thinking about how it is that they can make a difference. And so you want to give your donors the opportunity to visualize the impact that they will make and how they can or did help others. Images of smiling people, like we just talked about, it has the same impact as an in-person smile. Your executive director level or chairman of the board letter, oftentimes that letter is talking about what you accomplished over the year or congratulating some people, but also use it as an opportunity to create curiosity, to draw people into the organization, to help people think about impact and what that means. And the greatest thing is that your annual report becomes another member of your fundraising team. It sits out on your website. It has information about what it is, who you are, what you do, what other donors have done, how they're making an impact, how strong your financial reports are, and it becomes another member of the fundraising team. It works 24/7, and it doesn't take vacation, it doesn't get sick, none of those things. So these inspirational stories, they attract volunteers. So that is why we encourage the use of the annual report as an opportunity to document your results, motivate the board, and to recruit new donors. The inspirational stories that you share within your annual report, they also trigger that happiness trifecta neuroscientifically. We love stories, we react well to stories, and donors have been shown to give more money to a fundraising appeal that is created by volunteers than one that is created by fundraisers. It's the reason when you have or have had your events, you ask volunteers or other donors to make the appeal, to the financial appeal. There's something about a volunteer or a donor making the appeal that is encouraging for others. It's their adding credibility to the experience of being involved with this organization. And so this article, Who Owns the Story? Fundraising Testing, Charity-Led versus Contributor-Led. If you take a look at that recently published article, it talks about having volunteers create the appeal. All right, I want to pause. We're about halfway through to see if there are any questions. Oh, and I do see that someone went on nonprofitbonus.org and it took them to Google. Okay, let's see. I will check into that. I apologize if it took you to Google. When I go there, I wonder if it's after you submitted, then the next screen was Google. If that was it, that's okay. I'll check the email later and make sure that I confirm with you so that your documents will come into your inbox. If the document flow back to you is slow, I will work on that and make sure that I get a response to you on that. I think that was Arifa. Are there any other questions? Okay, but you already got the email. Okay, so Victoria, Arifa, okay, all of you got the email. Perfect. Glad to hear that that's working. Are there any other questions about the content that we're going over? If not, I will keep going. All right, perfect. So donor dynamos. What are some examples of organizations that are doing this really well? Well, who hasn't heard of Feeding America? They're really killing it, right? If you go to their annual report, on the very first page, right at the top, they're saying, in partnership with caring supporters like you, right? They're speaking right to their donors. The Feeding America Network helped to provide 6.6 billion meals, which is a record. So what they're doing here in this communication is right on the front page, they're saying, those of you that donated, you contributed to 6.6 billion meals being delivered to. They're telling you about the impact right from the front. And that's not where it stops. On the next page, they tell you, meet Christina. She's one of our volunteers and a donor, and here's her story. This is why it's important to her. And then when they get to their financials, not only do they do this beautiful job of showing us a beautiful plate that we'd all love to eat off of as a part of the Feeding America brand, but on the side of their financials right there, they're saying special thanks to their donors, and they're listing corporations that have donated to Feeding America and saying thank you. If you think about this whole document as a love letter to your donor, where you're saying thank you, you're highlighting them, you're making them feel special, you're showing them their impact, right? It becomes really compelling for people to want to make a donation. So some common mistakes that people will make is they'll have lots of pictures of their staff and their leadership team. I can't tell you how many annual reports I read or review where all I see is the executive director with celebrities, government officials, and all those kinds of things, but it's not showing the donors how they can make an impact. There are no smiling faces. You need those smiling faces. There are not enough opportunities for donors and volunteers to imagine themselves involved. Very similar to when you're looking for a house, oftentimes when we're looking for a new house or a new home, we try to picture ourselves and our furniture in that house or that home. It's very similar here. Donors who are thinking about your organization, they want to picture themselves and how would it be if they signed up and became a part of your family. And so you want to show them what that looks like in words and in images. So you want to focus on the a number of people make the mistake of focusing on the organizational accomplishments, and your accomplishments are important. Donors do want to know, what is the organization getting done? But that shouldn't be the focus. The focus has to be on the donors with providing them critical bits of information, but drawing them in emotionally and helping them to receive that happiness trifecta. If your financial reports don't say what it's going to mean for the future, you want to make sure that you're making that point. And you want to make sure that you've got as many donor or volunteer stories in there so that there are a variety of people doing a variety of things, and so that your people can picture themselves in that environment. So if we look at someone else donating Life America, here we've got Erin Meza talking about she donates to Donor Life America because her mom was a fortunate recipient of a lung donation 2 years ago. And she's going to pay it forward. And what I really like about this page, not only is it showing the smiling pictures of Erin and her mom, which is gold, it is also focused on recurring contributors. This is an opportunity where the organization took up a significant amount of space in their annual report to say thank you to the people who are doing the kinds of behaviors that we really love. Their contributions are recurring. So let's highlight them. Let's give them a big spot in our annual report because we want everyone to be on this page. We don't just want one-time donors, we want recurring contributions. And so let's highlight people who are doing that, which is really nice. So when you're prospecting with your annual report, so say you've got a meeting with a potential donor, you're going to their home or you're meeting them at the country club or on the golf course or at lunch or in their home. When you're prospecting, you want to make sure that you take the annual report with you and think about giving them an executive summary. Hit the high points. People care most about the ED letter, the pictures of volunteers, the financials, and anywhere where their name might appear or people that they know. You want to make the conversation about the donors and their interests. So if you know that your donor is particularly interested in helping veterans, then make sure that you hit the highlights and show photos of happy veterans, et cetera. Or if they're more interested in animals or small children, you want to make the conversation about what's particularly interesting for them and how it is that they can get involved. You want to point to the action images to help them visualize the impact that they're going to make helping others, and then share the stories of others that are making an impact. And you also want to make sure that you do spend a little bit of time on those financials. You don't want to skip it or act like you're hiding it or that it's not important. The financials are critical, but they should not be the majority of the report. And of course, when you do all of this with all these smiling faces on every page, of course, you are triggering the happiness trifecta. So when you're making the ask, you want to make sure that you are prepared and specific. I can't tell you how many times people go into a meeting with a donor, and I used to do this myself, saying, well, there are 5 or 6 different ways that you can get engaged. But the same way that it happens when we are shopping, if there are too many options, like when you're standing in the cereal aisle of the grocery store, it can feel overwhelming if you don't know but when you walk in, exactly what cereal you want. You're like, oh my gosh, does it have enough fiber? Is it too much sugar? All of these kinds of things, it gets to be overwhelming. So you want to be prepared and be specific, tailor it to their interests, their needs, and their means, because of course, you've done your research on this individual before you go to the meeting with your donor. And try not to give them more than 3 options. Again, 3 is sort of that magic number. So even if you have, 20 options for them to get involved and or donate, based upon your research and tailoring it to that individual, select the 3 that you think are most likely and talk through those and say, which one of these resonates with you? Make sure, that there's one that's sort of in the sweet spot and there's one that's a little bit of a stretch for them, and one that, in case you got it completely wrong, they can come in a little bit lower on. But, give them 3 options to choose from. And then once you make the ask, stop talking. Let them talk. Let them ask questions. It's really hard to do that, but I can tell you, once you learn to make the ask and let them say the next thing, you will be so much more productive, especially with your big donors. They want the space to ask their questions, to think it through, and clearly understand that the ball is in their court. And that's what you do when you make the ask and you stop talking. They know that the ball is in their court. Now, this is a mistake that I made, but only once. I went to a meeting with a potential donor and I was not ready to accept the donation. Now, this was back in the day when, you had to fill out all of these paper forms. Now we've got technology and you can take an iPad and oftentimes you can do it over the phone, but make sure that you have what you need to be ready to accept the donation in that moment. Because if you're not, you'll miss out on opportunities, because if you got to schedule a follow-up or somebody's got to reach out to them or send them an email or make a phone call, that's an easy way to not get the donation. Make sure that you're ready to accept the donation right then and there, but also be ready to provide more information if they have questions. And that's one of the reasons why having your annual report with you, whether it's printed, whether it's electronic, whether it's on the website, be ready to go to provide them the information that they need about the organization, about the leadership, about the programs and services that you provide, about your financials, all of that. Be ready to provide whatever additional information they have or need. And if you have your annual report, oftentimes that's right there. And then allow the conversation to continue. So if in fact they say, well, you know what, I'm not ready to make a donation today, that's okay. You don't have to abruptly leave or take it personally. Allow that conversation to continue. Make sure that you're making the connection with the person and that the door is open for you to have a follow-up conversation. If you need to schedule another date or figure out when you're going to see them again or when you'll be at another event, but you want to make sure that you allow that conversation to continue. Now, this organization has done an amazing job of acknowledging their donors. you'll see that, well, we know that potential donors want to see how you treat your current donors. And so here they're showing Vilas and Ali Cucinat, and they're highlighting what they have done to help Dream succeed. So they're sharing stories about the difference that they made in the lives of real organizations. And so some of the truths that we know in the nonprofit world: you can't serve if you can't sell your organization to others and get donations. Fundraising is the #1 job of any executive director or CEO. And the better you are at attracting donors, the more freedom you have to make other executive decisions within your organization. And the better you are at creating the happiness trifecta, the easier it is to attract donors in spite of any challenges that you may be facing. So ask yourself, is there something that's missing in your annual report or in your donor recruitment process? If there is, add it. If there's something misaligned, adjust it. If there's something murky, let's go ahead and take the time to illuminate it. And if you're not sure on how to do that, join me in July for the 500K Donor Challenge. As I mentioned, if you go to nonprofitbonus.org, we will do this together. You will get the ultimate guide to creating nonprofit annual reports. You'll get the nonprofit annual report checklist and bonus training of the 500K donor challenge. So, okay, so are there any other questions? We've gone over a lot of material today. Hopefully many of you will be joining me for the challenge in July. But I want to pause here, give you the opportunity to put any questions that you might have in the question and answer section in the 3 minutes that we have left. Pamela, that was speedy, yes. Yeah, 30 minutes goes by before you know it. Yes, I'm glad you thought it was killer content. I was really excited to share this with you guys. And if you think this is killer content, come to the 500K challenge. There's more of that to come. Are there any other questions? All right. Well, feel free to shoot me an email, say hello, tell me how things are going, ask any questions you might have. It has been a pleasure to be with you today, and I look forward to being with you again soon. I'm going to give you 2 more minutes back in your day. Thank you. And I'm going to turn it back over to you, Monica.
Thank you, Allecia. This workshop has now come to a close. If you are interested in receiving the recordings and materials from today's free webinar, you can visit our free webinars page on the Nonprofit Learning Lab website. You can also send us an email at program@nonprofitlearninglab.org. Thank you so much for participating. And again, thank you, Allecia, for educating our community.
My pleasure.